right, we are back. We're here live with Aaron Kirchner, leading the data science events this week. But today, or right now, we're going to talk about marathon.
Yeah.
So, that being said, did you, we know the problem now.
I think Maria talked about that at some length this morning, right?
Yep.
Good.
Yep. So we kind of have an idea about that. Do we want to start with anything in particular?
Well, we did get a question in on Twitch
let's do that.
on going over the problem statement. We went over the problem statement, but scoring. So how is it scored? Like, how does that leaderboard come out with that number?
Okay. So when you're talking about a marathon problem, you actually have individual test cases that are run, more than one test case, basically different scenarios that the solution has to work through. And you get a raw score for each test case. In this case, the raw score, it's kind of interesting. Bit challenging to describe all the details verbally, but the idea is essentially the more cells you visit that are at or above the number you're looking for, the more likely you're going to score more points. So there's a bit of strategy in there, trying to find enough cells to get the points, but without destroying all your cells and not being able to find all the ones you want. So there's a couple different approaches people can take. But suffice to say, for each test, you get a raw score. There's two kind of tests that actually take place that you see on the leaderboard. There's the example tests and the full tests. The example test is a small set of cases. It's approximately 10 tests usually. In this case, it is exactly 10. When a competitor does an example test, the system will give them back their score on each test, as well as any debug output or error output that they generated. So they get detailed feedback on those 10 cases. It's good to do because it's very quick, very easy, and gives you a lot of idea. But it's only 10 cases, so with a problem where there could be a lot of variability in the types of situations you're looking at, it doesn't give you a whole lot of depth, but it does give you a quick idea of where you're at. The full test actually runs a larger set of cases. In this case, it's 100. So what that does is scores them and gives them back only a number indicating their overall score. Now, how you get from the individual score per test to the overall score on the leaderboard is interesting. For each test case, we look at the individual score somebody got and the highest score anybody got for that test case. And we divide your score divided by maximum. So in other words, if you have the best score for a test case, that's worth a full 1. If you did half as well as the best person, that's worth 0.5, and anywhere in between. Add that together and average across the 100 test cases, and then multiply by 1,000,000 to scale it out to get the scoreboard. What that means mathematically is that theoretically a score of 1,000,000 would mean that you have the best solution on all 100 test cases of anyone. So looking at the scoreboard now, the highest, you see me looking over, there's actually a big one on the projector that we can see really, really nicely there.
Let's bring it up
Yeah,
here.
bring one up there so we can talk about that a little bit. The scoreboard is not okay, perfect. Since the scoreboard that we have hooked up to this live stream is kind of going on the futz a little bit. It's not a top coder open unless something gets a little bit finicky. But we're good at dealing with it. Right now, the leader, currently Magorliano from Romania, I believe, he's got 784,000. So that means either on 78 of those test cases he's doing the best, or on all 100 of the test cases he's very close to the best. In reality, it's probably he's at or near the top for each of those 100 test cases. So there's...
Go to the stage camera to see the board.
Oh, look at that. See?
That's why I'm here.
James Corey here.
That's why I'm here. I'm here.
So this was actually put together, I believe it's the history of all the marathons.
No audio.
It wasn't on the other one. It's on this one.
What's that?
We'll fix it.
Okay.
We're good. Keep going.
Okay, so
Good.
Yep. So what we're seeing here is kind of looking at all the head-to-head matchups on any contest where any of the current finalists have both been in the contest and seeing who has won against each other more often. What this might lead you to believe, just looking at those head-to-head matchups, is that the individual who I would have come in today thinking is my odds-on favorite to win, W. Late, looks like he has a pretty good history of doing better than everyone else.
Look at that.
Yeah, all his numbers are yellow. Huh?
Yeah, every one of his numbers is yellow, meaning he's at least on paper the strongest competitor head-to-head against everyone else up there. However, if you look at the actual leaderboard right now, Yeah, it's saying exactly the opposite, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Well, it seems like he hasn't submitted as much as some of the other.
Well, this is true.
well.
He's only made 4 submissions, and his score has been pretty low for a while. I don't think I've actually seen him make a submission for quite some time now, leading me to believe that maybe he's just at a point where he's realizing his initial approach just didn't work or didn't have as much merit as perhaps he thought. So maybe he's spending some time to rethink what he's doing or come up with a different way of solving the problem. Generally speaking, where we are now, 4 or 5 hours into the competition, he's probably realizing that if he's that far behind, that means others are doing something much better than he is. So that's a good clue for him that,
cut bait and switch
time to
approach.
cut bait. And that can be a really tough decision, especially when you've invested a few hours trying to work on something, to have to make that decision and say, wow, this isn't working, I've got to completely bail and try something different.
Yeah, it would be really hard for me as a developer to completely refocus and not go down the same path. too,
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, how often in our day jobs do we all run into a situation where
Start fresh.
and just throw out what I've been working on for the last 3 months or whatever?
Right.
That can be a really tough thing to do. And,
Right.
and when you're looking at a 10-hour competition, essentially if he's starting fresh now, he's got only 5-6 hours to think about it, 5.5 hours left. So, but that might be the right thing to do. Now, I'm saying this not having looked at what he's doing on his screen at all. I could be completely wrong, but
Can
just
we do that? Do you want to go over and look?
Oh yes, actually we can pull that
we
off.
can look. I have to be careful how much I comment on it since it is a live competition going on. But yeah,
True.
if you want to scroll down, he's kind of right there, down more. There you go. Let's see what happens. See if we've actually got a live feed. Now, depending on, okay, so he is actively working on stuff.
And he's in what language?
He's typically a Java programmer. Yes, and in fact, it is Java that he's using this time. So I'm not surprised at all about that. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what he does here. I guess looks like he's adding in some debug statements, trying to just get a little bit of a sense for what's going on. Perhaps maybe he's having an issue that he's having a hard time troubleshooting or something like that. I don't know for sure. That said, if I did know, I wouldn't say it on a live stream while the event is still going on. I don't want anybody else to inadvertently find out what he's up to. Because even though he's currently not in the lead, he may have the next big innovation that breaks the thing open for somebody, and we certainly don't want to spoil the fun in that manner.
All right, let's pop to a couple other screens.
Sure.
Anything in particular you'd like to see?
Let's see. You can pull up Tourist.
He's a favorite, right?
Well, it's interesting. I believe this is his first. He was down a little bit. Down.
Touchscreen.
Yeah, that's very. There you go. Pull up Tours and see what he's up to. So one of the things is that I believe this is his first time being on site for Marathon. He's generally very well known in the community as being the algo guy. Has won several times both on Top Coder and on other competitive platforms. The fact that he's here for Marathon also is very interesting. It shows that certainly there are some transferable skill sets for sure. But maybe he's just trying for something different, or maybe he's having a lot of fun with it. Whatever it is, certainly somebody to watch out for, as he's currently sitting in second place.
So what were you looking at there? It's still up on the
Looked like he was
Twitch.
submitting.
Your code size is 12067.
That's actually him making. Looks like he made an example submission.
Okay.
You go onto the website and you actually paste in your code to make the submission.
Yep. And you see it
and you
processing
can,
now.
Yep, on the scoreboard you can actually
Yep,
see that it is processing right now. So I don't know anything about what his approach is. I haven't looked that carefully, and once again, wouldn't want to say anything about it live. But he's been an interesting individual. Actually, for much of the morning, anybody who's here in the arena in person might have noticed he wasn't even looking at his computer screen or typing. He had his chair facing the other way, with his head kind of in his hands like this,
Yep.
just sort of thinking about the problem. And it's actually really interesting just kind of watching that process happen. You get a lot of competitors who will sit there just scribbling a bunch of stuff on paper before they start typing. He was clearly just deep in thought.
Yeah.
He wanted, and that's a viable strategy. A little bit of time thinking about what it is you're going to do before you actually start doing it. Sometimes that's the right way to go.
Yeah. Who else we got?
Yeah,
Let's see what our leader's up to, our current leader at least.
yeah. The lead has changed many times in even just a few short hours, though. So who knows?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the pronunciation any justice, but this is
Mugurilionuts.
yeah, that exactly. Now,
Unfortunately, we have
that is
lost
not
his
going to work
signal.
because we are not having a signal from that.
All right,
No.
that's fine. Let's
Let's
move
go
on
to,
Milanin, who was leading.
Was leading
earlier.
for quite a while, now in third. Yeah, not a whole lot happening on his screen, which suggests, oh no, he's getting ready to do something. Okay, I was about to say that suggests he might be in a little bit of a thinking phase right now.
Yeah.
That's certainly important. You don't want to just go in there and start banging on the keys, hoping for the best.
That's how I do it.
And that is why you're not a competitor.
That's why I'm over
you're
here.
sitting behind this
Yeah.
desk instead.
Let's actually discuss for a second for those that may want to try for next year. I hear TCO18 is a little bit different. The
Yeah,
road.
we have actually changed things up a bit, and I think that's pretty exciting actually, because we're now giving a few different paths to actually make it on site. One sort of feedback that we've heard, again, if you ask 10 different people, you're probably going to get 11 different opinions, but one piece of advice we've heard is that sometimes, especially when we schedule kind of the online rounds, they're all usually over the summer in the northern hemisphere anyway, over those summer months, and it's kind of important to be around for most, if not all of them, and for much of the time of each of them, if not all of them. Not everybody likes doing that. We also have throughout the year, we run a contest approximately once a month doing these fun marathons, and the goal is kind of to give a little bit more emphasis on those and kind of make those more meaningful. As though, although they are fun and obviously everybody has a great time doing them, making them part of TCO so that the TCO experience and the qualification experience can now be sort of a year-round kind of experience makes it a little bit different. So what we have here is we're starting for the marathon, starting it a little bit later than some of the other tracks. So we've only got a stage 2, 3, and 4, but from each of those stages, the top 2 individuals who have accumulated the most points over the fun marathons during that time will actually be automatically invited to come to the finals. That way, if maybe somebody wants to just get in early and punch their ticket to come here, or maybe they know that trying to do it over the summer isn't as good for them, or maybe they just really like doing marathons and they happen to be doing really well for a while, we want to see those people too. Now, the other 6 slots are still available for the dedicated TCO rounds, which are still going to be taking place during the kind of same time frame as the online rounds that we have done hitherto. And again, it's going to be points based, where the higher you place in each one, you get essentially qualification points towards the overall. So that will the six from the individual stages and 6 from the TCO online rounds is going to give us our 12 finalists for 2019.
Very cool.
Interesting.
And we'll see how this goes. And the hope is, though, to make everything more exciting year round, rather than just have it be everybody come out of the woodwork for a few months and feel like it's a mad rush to qualify. Now there's a little bit more reason to have some more fun the rest of the year as well.
And when does this start? When did the
So
season start?
The TCO19 season has actually already started. However, in the case of the fun marathons, we didn't have a good plan in place for how we wanted to do this. So we needed a little bit more time to think about it. So it's only going to be stage 2, 3, and 4. The first contest, which is going to apply for stage 2, is actually beginning on, I believe, November 25th. So at some point I'll probably start working on a problem for that.
There you go. Yeah, that's probably good.
Probably
So
around
about
the
11 days.
probably around the 23rd I'll start
Yeah.
working.
Okay.
No, we're gonna try to get it done a little bit sooner than that.
So
but-
you read a lot of problems as well?
Obviously you talked with Maria earlier, and she has been probably our biggest problem writer as of late. When she is not writing, 90% chance it's me who wrote the problem. That's actually, I may as well get the free shout out in. Anybody out there who likes algorithm problems, likes marathons, likes proposing problems, maybe isn't as good at solving problems, we want to hear from you, because if you think you might be able to write a problem that is open-ended enough and interesting enough, you could potentially write a marathon problem. Don't worry, we'll help you get used to the process of doing it. But definitely getting a little bit more fresh blood, some different perspectives on that, I think that's something we really would like.
And where can they go to register?
We may have a forum already open for it. If not, I will make sure my contact information is made available so that people can reach out to us. And
Yeah, we pushed that
We'll get
earlier
that
with
going.
Harshit too, and he said reach out to him too. So,
perfect. Yeah. Generally speaking, if anything comes through, if Harshit gets anything related to problem writing, algo or marathon, I usually will hear about it shortly thereafter, and we'll direct things and kind of work from there.
Okay, wonderful. I think we do have Google Relay Notes screen back up.
Do we? Okay.
So let's see if we can get a look in on that. We do not
Yeah. Well,
have
we
it
tried.
yet. Yeah, we tried.
Try a reach stone,
Oh, a restart. Yeah, we haven't.
because he's another one of the ones that jumped from algo over to marathon, right?
That's true.
There you
Ah, excellent.
Watching YouTube, huh?
So
listening.
I think he's actually watching YouTube.
For the music.
He's watching YouTube, so he has the music for his headphones, which I mean is, hey, whatever works.
Check
There's a
that
visual
You
out.
can actually see him. He's running through the visualizer, trying his solution right now, and it's actually really kind of fun to watch it happen in fast motion.
So, are they getting points for those dark squares? Is that essentially?
So what happens is you're counting from 1 to n, and each time, if you happen to run over any squares that are above the next one you're looking for, those sort of get saved as points for you. The downside is that they get blocked off, so you can only use them once. So let's say you're trying to get from 1 to 5. You've hit 1, and then you hit 3, 4, and 5 before you get 2. Yeah, you're going to get those 12 points for those 3 blocks that you hit, but they go away. That's where the name of the problem, Vanishing Maze, comes from. That you can try to get more points by hitting more squares earlier on or later on, depending on your strategy. But because they go away, that gives you less options to try to hit the next number in the sequence. So whether it's a better strategy to try to optimize your path and get to the higher numbers, or whether you want to try to just score a whole bunch of points on the lower numbers, there's really a lot of different ways you can approach this problem. Certainly one of the things we go for is having a problem that is both easy to approach to get something started with, but very, very hard to find one good way to do it or one definite winning solution. A lot of approaches, and we'll see what the winner comes up with, obviously.
C++ too.
Yeah, all except Vladimir Leite are using C++ today. He's kind of the odd man out in the sense that he is the Java guy still, but it seems to work for him, obviously, where he wins or is near the top of nearly everything he does.
So it looks like he wants to test out one of these smaller grids that only go up to 10.
Yeah, sometimes, especially when you're testing, looking at a smaller case just to be able to see what your solution is doing, maybe see if there's something it's doing wrong, or it's a little bit clearer to visualize in a smaller case. Of course, the larger cases in a lot of situations are where a lot of your point scoring opportunities are going to be, because you could potentially do much, much better than a lot of other people if you look at something that works really well there. But having a solution coded up that knows to look at the variety of different situations you're going to encounter and figuring out what's best to do in each situation, that's really the key to winning, is to just make those decisions and hopefully make the right decision.
What so C++, Java, and there's you can use C#?
C# and Python are permitted. In reality, we do get a handful of people using C#. Most don't, because most serious competitors, no dig to the C# guys, I'm actually a C# girl myself. Most of the more serious competitors are command line Linux folks, where C# isn't really the most common option.
Right.
We do allow Python also, but realistically, where you're in a competition like this, where part of it is that your solution has a limited amount of time to run. We're talking, I believe it's 10 seconds this time. I think it was 20 seconds at one point, I think it's 10 seconds now though. But anyway, a very limited amount of time, where you're potentially picking the best path from countless possibilities. The more calculations you can get done quickly, the better.
Yeah.
And as most folks who spend any time looking at it would probably already know, but for those who maybe haven't thought about it a lot, C++ is going to be your fastest language. Yeah, command for command, it's going to execute the fastest. Your next fastest is actually going to be C#, by an order of 2 to 3 times slower than C++. Java, probably about 2 or 3 times slower than that.
That doesn't affect your score, does it?
Well, it does and it doesn't. And let me finish my first thought, though. Python, probably an order of 10 slower than any of the above. Just because of the way the language is executed internally, it tends to be very slow. So the amount of time your solution takes doesn't directly affect your score, in the sense that it doesn't matter how long it takes as long as it runs within the allotted time. What it does affect, though, is in that same 10-second interval, being able to do a lot more calculations and calculate a lot more possibilities and try to optimize more different path selections is generally going to be a much better situation than, kind of like, imagine you're playing chess or whatever. If you're able to think about 1,000 moves at once, you're usually going to do better than somebody who's only able to think about 10 different things.
Right. Right.
Not to, ruffle the feathers of anybody who's still mad about.
Who doesn't love a good language fight?
Yeah, exactly.
So when are you going to allow JavaScript? Come on. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So we're looking at Merrick Seigen right here, ranked 9, our only professor competing today.
Merrick Seigen actually, a while back, a few years ago, was one of the folks who came over from the algo side. He was a very strong algorithm competitor for quite some time. I believe it was 2005 I was on site with him at Google, and he was the winner there.
Look at all of these years he's been here. 05 to 09, skipped 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 17, and now currently 18.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning on most of those years you see him listed as being a competitor here were years that he was doing it for algorithm. I believe only 16, 17 in this year are marathon, off the top of my head anyway.
Yeah, I remember him and Saiho being in a battle one year for the top spot.
Yes, that has definitely happened. Speaking of which, has anybody noted the fact that Saiho is not here this year anymore? Yeah, I've gotten that question a lot, and certainly folks have commented on that quite a bit. Speaking with him a bit, I actually, through serendipity, got a chance to actually visit with him over the summer, and asked him a little bit about it. And the way he said it to me is, number one, he's got a lot going on in his life outside of just competing and that sort of thing.
Right.
So he wants.
There we go.
There we go. Now here's one more fun fact for anybody that might be paying attention at home and might be looking in the forums. That handle name you see there, TMAC, is not going to be my handle much longer.
No?
In fact, I have started using a new one as of this morning. Yeah,
as of this morning, okay.
As of this morning, I started using a new one. So if anybody actually looks in the marathon forums, you can see me posting under a different identity now. Well, same person, but you know.
Is it EMAC?
It is
No.
not.
Oh, okay.
No.
That would have been funny.
That would have been funny, and in fact, you wouldn't be the first one to ask a question like
Yeah.
that. But no, that would have been too obvious. All right, let's see. Who are you? You're showing us Tomaroon now.
Yeah, we're good. We're good audio-wise. Yeah.
Excellent. Tomaroon actually an interesting individual to show as. If anybody on the stream right now from Japan happens to be watching, despite this being the English version of the stream, konnichiwa, by the way, if you are watching, but Tomaroon is going to be one of the hosts for our Friday stream in Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm sure he will have plenty to say about the marathon problem, having endured it for 10 hours. Hopefully what he says is at least complimentary about the problem and not wanting to kill the people who put it together. But I know he's pretty excited about that. We've already been in communication with him about the algo problems and stuff, so he knows what to discuss. Should be a good time. That is, kind of free plug there for the stream here. That is something new we're doing this year with the multilingual streams.
Yeah, we have a couple of them, I think.
We have several, yeah.
I believe it is Chinese, Japanese, Russian, and Indonesian.
Fantastic.
It's going to be really cool. Let's move over to SDYA. He's been a finalist in 2012, 2013, and he's now back. Not sure exactly what we're looking at.
So we're looking at his desktop probably because he's got his hands in his lap. I'm not sure what to do. I actually don't have a good view from here to be able to see precisely what he's up to right now. But my guess is he's either scribbling notes, banging his head on the desk, or just kind of taking a breath to think. Unless maybe he took a bathroom break. That's entirely possible.
That could be it.
That could be.
Let's see Paul Jeffries, see what he's up to. Looks like he's testing.
Yes, it appears as though he is. What a lot of competitors will actually do is they will write a little script to essentially run the visualizer in non-visual mode, but script it out to run it like 1,000 times over, so that locally they can tell how their solution is doing without having to do submits. And even while they're working on the problem, they'll frequently leave their most recent version running just constantly. So that is actually one of the reasons why Marathon remains the only track on site where we still are fairly insistent about people using the hardware we provide. Because what I don't want this competition to ever turn into is who can bring the most ridiculously large, powerful machine with them to do just a few more calculations than the person sitting next to them. Because that's not really a fun competition at that point. That's just
hardware.
That's just hardware. And it would be very loud and very hot here with those machines running like that. Fortunately, we are in a good position where the machines that everybody's using this year are some that our parent company Wipro donated to us for the event, and they are much better machines than what we've had in years past. They are very nearly top of the line, so hopefully the competitors are enjoying that at least.
Let's see if we can find someone with their visualizer running. Let's move over to Nika.
Yeah, we haven't talked to Nika much yet. Okay, I see a little bit of looking at the leaderboard, a little bit of stressing there.
So we have 2 Java people? That's it?
No, do we have 2? Oh, we do have 2 Java people. I didn't see who they were. It was Tomaroon does Java also. Wow, color me surprised. But that's good. The nice thing about Java, speaking from a developer perspective, it's not as easy to shoot yourself in the foot the way you can with C++, right? Yeah. You don't have to worry about memory allocation and null pointers and that kind of stuff. So for some folks, they just prefer that. It's one less thing to think about.
So what was that showing? There was some green and red.
So I believe that looks like he has some browser tabs open showing some custom output. Most likely, he has a script running. I'm taking a guess just based upon what I would probably be doing. He has a script running that runs through a whole bunch of test cases locally, and I'm guessing the green and red is showing whether what he's trying now has improved or gotten worse since the last time he ran it. Just a guess, but I guess based upon some experience. That may also be why we're not seeing a ton of submissions on the leaderboard. A lot of the testing can take place locally for this. And when you do make a submission to the leaderboard, you are learning some information about yourself. However, you are also giving your competitors a little bit of information too. I thought for sure for the first couple hours we might have seen it this year. It looks like that's not the case though. There have been years where competitors have waited until a half an hour before the end of the contest before they submit anything at all.
Yeah.
The logic with that approach being, I'm going to just code my solution to be as good as I can, and whether it's better than anybody else's or not isn't really going to affect my ability to solve it, so
Right.
I'm just going to sit here and hide in my little bubble and do my thing. Different strategies, that's all.
I don't believe that we have spoken about ATS yet.
Not yet.
What's he up to?
Well, he's definitely another C++ competitor. I had a quick glance at the code. I'm not sure exactly what he's doing. Again, though, to the credit of the fact that we're on a live stream, I don't know how much I would be at liberty to say right now. Anyway, but he looks like he's making a few tweaks, trying to figure out what he wants to fix there. So one of the interesting kind of quirks about this problem, and I don't think this will be a spoiler, I'm sure the competitors realize this after about 5 minutes, because of the way the maze vanishes as you run over certain squares, it's potentially a situation where you could paint yourself into a corner, so to speak, where you simply get trapped and there are no squares to move to.
Right.
At which point that would probably be really bad because you can't possibly score any more points then. So just noticing he's got a method called check insert suggests maybe that he's looking to see if it's to his advantage to consider a certain square on a path or not.
So, Dave Messenger just came over and gave me a little piece of information that Taurus is actually standing up and walking around and drawing in the air with a pen.
Okay, so this, yes, that
sounds like something.
That is actually fantastic, and we really do need to get like a mobile
We have
camera.
that
of
camera
sorts.
there, but we'll have to get that fixed.
Yeah, gonna have to move that around and see someone. So, having seen Tourist on site at many TCOs, it is not uncommon for him to get up from his desk right in the middle of the event, and as you say, he'll be kind of staring and just kind of looking. And it looks
Swimming
like
through the matrix.
swimming through this imaginary matrix around him.
It's like a beautiful mindset.
No, there really is a lot going on in his mind. Yeah, writing with an imaginary pen. It's like he's visualizing what he's going to do. You know that whole positive imagery thing when you go out to play golf, you imagine the ball going in the hole before you hit it?
Yep.
That's pretty much what he's doing.
Or you're in a spelling bee.
Yeah, you're imagining the code before you start typing it. You're just seeing the output come out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's not the only competitor to behave like that. And certainly, I think most folks, you know, if you're working in an office or whatever, have had times where it's like, you know what, I need to go up and just get a cup of coffee just to stand up from the desk, be able to think, clear your mind a little bit. And that's part of it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Sitting for 10 hours is pretty grueling in itself. I'm sure you're going to get tired. You want to stretch those legs well. Get the blood
I
pumping.
believe it greatly predates both of you, but there was one year we actually did a 24-hour marathon final.
24 hours.
24 hours straight
Anybody
through.
like drop off? Drop
So
dead?
basically,
Gotta take naps.
well, we actually, it was kind of a cool experience. The rule was that at any point, if you wanted to just call it quits and say you're done, that's as far as you want to go, you're welcome to do that. However, once you leave the arena and go back to your hotel room or whatever, that's it. You're not allowed to come back anymore after that. But we did have bean bags around the arena if anybody wants to take naps or whatever. And of the 12 competitors, I think we had 4 or 5 actually made it the full 24 hours. To a very empty but filled with thundering applause arena for those that actually survived 24 hours straight of working on the problem.
I'd be cross-eyed.
They were. I assure you they were. They're kind of getting up like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we heard almost universally from all of them, no 24 hours ever again.
Do you know who won that one?
I'm almost certain it was Saiho. He was there that year, and he was actually probably the biggest one who he looks like he's half asleep anyway, even when he's awake. So I wasn't sure if it was the 24 hours or just his usual demeanor.
Yeah.
But he insisted no 24 hours. And actually, one of the other admins and I, who, because we came up with the brilliant idea of doing the 24-hour contests, were assigned all the overnight shifts, had also decided we're never doing that again. The only silver lining in that is it was in Vegas, so there was stuff going on 24 hours a day anyway.
And they're pumping that out.
Oh, they sure are. Yeah, Jesse actually had midnight snacks delivered for everybody. There were like sandwiches and sodas coming at midnight. So
TCO mom. That's so sweet.
she does it. Well, she's TCO queen.
TCO queen.
Yeah.
Let's see, taking a look at the leaderboard, looks like Mugarilio Nuts is wanting to submit an example.
Yep. You might also notice W. Late has gone back down a few spots from where we were talking about him earlier. Doesn't necessarily mean anything good or bad, but it does show that the leaderboard is not going to be static. It's going to change quite a bit, and we've got 5 more hours to go. We'll have to see see what happens with it.
Try to see if we're still good on audio.
So this is what he's looking at.
That's what he's looking. So I only got a quick glance of it there, but that was certainly another one of those. Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of different test cases, and he's looking at all of his different runs. He's got green and red for is it better or is it worse?
So he's pulling in data now.
Yeah, as he's running it in the background, it's populating his little spreadsheet he's got there.
This is in lieu of the visualizer?
So the visualizer actually has a mode that you can run it basically without the visualization.
That's cool.
So it serves just as a local tester only that just basically spits out your score and maybe some debug output. The visualization itself, actually seeing the stuff move around the maze, that slows down the processing. So if you just run it, let it calculate your solution and see what happens, that then gives you a very good sense of. You can actually, as you're watching the results come up on his screen there, you can see it's processing 6 or 7 test cases every few seconds. So it's moving through them. What's interesting about that, I'm not sure if he's running it in parallel or anything like that. What's interesting about it is the rate at which those test cases are filling out is much faster than the maximum allowed time. So he may not even be using all of his allowed time for each of these test runs, possibly. We have certainly seen that before, where folks don't use all of the time right away and just work on the basic approach before they.
So wait, are you saying that Java is better than? Just kidding. Just kidding. Not opening that can of worms.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So red means what? Better than the last mission on the left?
I'm only guessing here because I don't know everything he's doing, but my guess is green means he's doing at as well or better than his previous one, and red means it's not as good. Like if he pulls it up again, you'll be able to see it. But at the top, it's got a date and a time. I believe that's the time and date that he did each test run. And that's honestly the systems that folks come up with to be able to estimate how their own solution is doing are really pretty ingenious and pretty cool to watch. Yeah. This is certainly one of the more visually appealing ones I've seen.
And maybe that's why he was sitting at the bottom for a while.
Maybe he was busy just doing stuff locally too, and trying to figure out what his next submission should be.
All right, so we have Mugarilio Newts. He is submitting his full submission. He's around 814,000.
Yeah. It should only take hopefully a minute or two for that to finish processing, and hopefully we'll be able to actually see what that does for his score. See if that moves him up or down. What's interesting, if you recall how I was explaining the scoring working, where the scores you see on the leaderboard are based upon, in part, the best score that anybody has for any individual test case.
And how many test cases are there?
There are 100 right now.
That's a full submission is 100.
Full submission is 100. The interesting effect that can have, though, is when anybody makes a submission, once it's done processing, it could potentially affect everybody's score. If they used to have the best score on a test case, or if their score on a particular test case changes, then it may change how that relative scoring works for everybody else.
Oh, I see. So, yep, that makes sense.
So if
you're taking points away from other people,
in a way, you're taking points away from other people by having an even better solution than they do. We've got a few people testing right now, so we'll kind of see how that goes and see what the results come up.
The professor.
Now, I did stress that right now there are 100 test cases. Once the match finishes, 5 hours from now, we're going to start on what we call the system testing.
System testing.
Which is an even larger set of test cases. Works basically the same way as full testing, but with more test cases.
Are those test cases just generated? I assume.
Yes, indeed they are. We did not spend hours sitting there coming up with 1,000 interesting test cases. Although as fun of an exercise as that would be, what that does do is by having many more test cases, it helps to even out any randomness or any bias towards. With 100 test cases, maybe something happens where only a few of them are really interesting. There's a lot of boring ones, or maybe they tend to favor one person's solution over another. But by getting 1,000 or maybe even 2,000 of them in there, it helps to ensure that. Oh wow! It helps to ensure that we cover a lot of different tests. You might notice
pacing around, got him up there.
While the Gorliano, his solution just finished testing. He was at 814,000, now at 890,000. So that was a pretty substantial jump.
And it looked like Merrick actually moved up. His submission hasn't even gone through yet. Is that interesting?
Well, like, as I was saying, because of the way the relative scoring works, maybe on certain types of test cases, something like that can happen. And yeah, so whenever anybody submits, everybody else can move around a little bit. It's kind of fun to watch that.
All right, we saw W. Late testing a lot. It looks like he is now
He
submitting.
is making a full submission.
Merrick has submitted, and he went up a little bit.
Went up a little bit, yeah, but
In
not
points.
substantially. We'll see when W. Late's is done too. See where that changes. He's at 454 right now. Hopefully, whatever he's got moves him up. Hopefully, for his sake, anyway. I'm sure the rest of the competitors might feel differently. I'll actually take a mention right now of an interesting situation we had happen this morning for this contest. I was mentioning about how this is the one track where we actually insist upon folks using our computers, so that doesn't become who has the fastest computer.
Right.
We actually did have one of the competitors had messaged us apparently earlier on, asking if they could use a MacBook instead. We missed the message somehow or didn't respond or whatever. So he showed up thinking that he might still be able to. So we yeah, a little bit, but we thought about it. We're like, okay, well, clearly a MacBook, for those not too into computer hardware, a laptop is going to have what we call thermal performance issues much more than a desktop. That's always going to be the case. It's going to get hot easier. It's not going to be able to run as fast. Always the case, no matter what. But so we thought, okay, well, he's actually not going to be at an advantage to be doing that. But in fairness to the rules, we told him we're going to ask all the competitors, make sure nobody feels disadvantaged by this, and see what they think. And they asked, and we explained exactly what the specs of his machine were going to be, what the specs of their machines were, and yeah, please do. So I forget which competitor it was now, but certainly it was in the competitive spirit. Nobody was really going to make a big deal about it, especially where it didn't pose an advantage. If anything, it was giving himself a disadvantage.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are the things that come up at these on-site events. You got to be just ready to figure it out as you go. Okay, so W. Late did make a submission and actually did move him up a little bit.
He went about 100,000 points.
Yes, he went from, I think it was 454 to 553. Certainly you saw his name move up on the list. So, again, you saw at the start of our talk he was floating around 119,000 somewhere around there, went to 454, now at 553. It's going to be hard to make a single jump that's going to take over the top, but he's moving up. If you remember carefully too, what the leader had at 890,000, notice that he came down just a little bit as a result of that last submission. So perhaps there's one or two test cases where maybe W. Late has got the best solution on them, so that again that affects everybody else. We'll kind of see how the battle goes through the rest of the day. El Dudu now trying to make a submission. We'll see what he's got. It does take a few minutes for a full submission to process. Those are 100 test cases being run, potentially 10 or 20 seconds a piece, divided up over however many servers we have running testing right now. Usually it's about 5 to 8 of them.
LDD seems to have jumped.
Oh, he did. Wow, up at 618,000.
Bringing W. Late pretty much down to where he was prior, standings-wise at least.
For a completely shameless plug on things that have nothing to do with programming, but also to do with announcements, not that anybody on this broadcast is going to care, next Saturday, my son, again, playing in the state championship football game. I believe I've talked about this every time I've been on the live broadcast at TCO. And
why should this be different?
This should not be any different, and I'm certainly pulling for him to win.
All right.
Who'd you pull up here? Is this LDU?
He was in the process of submitting at the
Okay.
time. So.
And you notice, like every other competitor, he's again got his own little system for
Red and green,
running a whole bunch of results. And you see that red and green. I'm assuming red is bad and green is good. Looks like maybe what he was just testing there maybe wasn't as good as he would have hoped. I'm hoping our viewers are enjoying this as much as I am. I actually find it very interesting just to get a good look at what everybody's
Just peek
doing.
in what they're
Yeah,
doing.
peek in and kind of look behind the curtain and see how things are going a bit.
Milanin?
Milanin currently sitting in third. Boy, when I see a lot of things that say score 0, that usually is not a good sign.
It's because he commented all his code out.
Well, that could be it too.
Let's see, he's ranked number 4. Currently placing 3rd.
Now, in spite of everything I said earlier about my expectations and who I would have guessed would be the winner and this, that, and the other thing, any one of these 12 individuals on the right day with the right problem, maybe has that particular insight. Any one of these could be the winner.
Yeah.
It absolutely. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone if any one of them were to win.
You just have to write in the air with an imaginary pen at the right time, right?
Exactly, and hopefully if you get what you're writing with that imaginary pen into the keyboard and on the screen, sometimes things can get lost in translation there. That's what, when you're writing with the imaginary pen, you forget to carry the one, the whole thing just goes to heck.
Alright, let's see what the pen writer's doing.
Okay, at a glance there. Okay. Wow, he's generating a lot of debug output. I'm not sure what it means.
I mean, you don't know what 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1 means?
Well, I mean, in theory, those are numbers. They are small numbers. What exactly he's calculating them?
Oh, you know what I think it is? The current location he's at, and where it moves to.
Could be.
Values?
It might be.
It's the beginning of it.
It's hard to say for sure. Particularly where many of the competitors are not from the US, sometimes the names that they give to things may not necessarily be as illuminating as names you might see in code if you were perhaps working with somebody in your office who speaks the same language as you.
Yeah,
Well, I see a still mouse, so there we go. Figured he may be up for a walk.
No, you see a still mouse because he's using keyboard shortcuts, which are faster than removing your fingers from the keyboard to switch windows. Every second counts.
In a 10-hour match.
Well, it's true. You watch the Boston Marathon, it's a several-hour-long race, but at the end it comes down to a few seconds usually.
All right. So I think that wraps up our time here.
Excellent.
I'd like to thank you, Aaron, for being on.
Absolutely. I always love talking about what I'm seeing because for me this is fun. I like being here, like doing this.
Do you think this could turn out to be one of those gamer type events one day where just we have a crowd, esports? Yeah.
I would love for this to be one of those things where there's just a crowd of people around everywhere and like
everyone's computer,
like big inflatable dolls of everybody's favorite competitor and stuff. It would be ridiculous, but it would be amazing at the same time. Yeah, with the big heads. Yeah, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? Hey, you never know.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna take a short break. We're gonna be back with the design semifinal 2. I believe Alexander Chexper will be on with us. So tune in, and we will chat with you later.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.